The emperor asked, "Have your twins been named?" My father replied, "Not yet." The emperor said, "Then let me take it." My father, "It's my son's honor." The emperor said, "One is called Shintangzhou, the other is Shinweiwei, how about it?" My father, "The character Zhou is the surname of the country, and my son is afraid he can't afford it." The emperor said, "The future queen can afford it." My father, "I'm afraid." 1. When Wanguan and I were 5 years old, neither of us had a big name yet, because my father didn't know who to put Shintangzhou on. 2. The day before our 5th birthday, my father, who had been stationed at the border all year round, suddenly returned. My mother, who was busy preparing for the birthday banquet, was overjoyed. 3. My mother took us to the restaurant that both Wanwan and I liked. I liked their chestnut crisps very much, and my mother usually doesn't let us eat more, but that day she didn't care about me and made me very happy, thinking that it would be good for my father to come back. 4. The day after my father came back, it was our birthday, and the queen asked my mother to take us to Yongchun Palace for our birthdays. My mother looked very unhappy, maybe the birthday banquet she was busy preparing didn't work. I don't like the queen a little because every time she sees me in Wanwan, she will ask, "Which of you is called Shintangzhou?" Every time she asked my mother, she would immediately kneel down and reply to her, back to the queen, "The eldest is called Shintangzhou, and the second is called Shinweiwei." At this time, the queen would frown and look back at us, saying, "Yen Yen, can you really tell the difference between you two girls?" My mother, "Sometimes it's a little hard to tell." My mother taught us not to lie, but she lied. 5. The dim sum here is really delicious, but it is still not as delicious as the chestnut crisp at Chuani restaurant. When I was concentrating on eating snacks, the emperor came and brought a good-looking male doll. This is the 3rd time I have seen the emperor. Just as my mother was about to stand up and salute, he raised his hand early so that we didn't have to bow too much. As soon as he sat down, he beckoned me and Wanwan to go over, and we saluted in an orderly manner. After we saluted, he touched my head lovingly and said, "This salute is very standard." I was so proud that I turned my head to show off to my mother, but I saw that her eyes were red. I wanted to run over and ask her what's wrong, but my mother said that she should be well behaved in front of the emperor and the queen. Now that the emperor is talking to me, I can't run away without politeness. I replied, "Well," because I went back and practiced very seriously. He kept laughing, and I saw that his face was whiter than the queen's smile. He touched Wanwan's head lovingly and said, "He is really like your father." Wanwan, "Thank you for your praise." I looked at Wanwan with starry eyes and thought she was so generous. I think my father is very dark and ugly, and if anyone says I look like my father, I will probably be angry. The emperor was talking to us gently one moment ago, but the next moment he started coughing, and coughed on the queen's body. The queen held his back and kept calling him Xian Tai. It happened so fast that when my mother took me in her arms, I hadn't even come back to my senses. 6. A lot of people, really a lot of people in and out of the room. The teenager stood there, and the noisy room made him look even sadder. I broke free from my mother's arms, ran to him, took his hand, and said to him, "Are you going to come into my mother's arms? My mother won't be sad when she hugs her." He shook off my hand and ran into the inner sanctum. I looked at my mother a little at a loss. My mother smiled at me and touched my head and said it was okay. Wanwan also followed my mother's example, touched my head and said, "It's okay." 7. We stood in the hall for a long time that day. It took me a long time to go from a little hungry to very hungry. The queen came out of the inner hall and said to my mother, "Let's go home." My mother let go of us and went up to hug the queen. I'll just say, if I'm sad, I will definitely need my mother's hug. When my mother led us out of the palace, I met my father and the uncle who had been following the emperor at the door. My father looked back and forth on me and Wanwan, and I suspected he couldn't tell the difference between me and Wanwan. I didn't want to embarrass him, and just as I wanted to remind him that I was error, he stared at me and squatted in front of me face to face. My father said, "Did you see that, brother?" I thought about it, and today I saw a brother, the brother next to the emperor. Me, is it the good-looking brother next to the emperor's uncle? My father, yes, it's that good-looking brother. Me, well, I saw it, he looks sad. My father, well, then are you willing to comfort him? I thought about it, I was a little reluctant because he just shook off my hand, but he looked really sad. I also think that I can comfort him again, and hug him like my mother comforts me, maybe it will be fine. I said, if you comfort him like my mother comforts me, won't he be sad? My father, yes. I said, then I do. After I finished speaking, my father's eyes turned red. My father and my mother are very familiar. I am very familiar with my mother. I want to ask my mother what's wrong with my father. Look up at my mother, she cried. I don't know what's wrong with everyone. I went to look at Wanwan at a loss, and she looked at me helplessly. I was at a loss for a while, and the uncle next to my father said to my father, General Shin, the emperor is still waiting for our family to reply. My father ignored him. He touched my head with his big palm and said, Error, your name will be Shintangzhou in the future, okay? I remember that the queen asked every time who was called Shintangzhou with Wanwan. I was very annoyed with her. I clearly told her that my name was Error, but she always couldn't remember. I also told the emperor, and he remembered that he knew my name was Error every time. I replied to my father, then the queen will ask us who is called Shintangzhou, and I can tell her, my name is Shintangzhou. My father, yes, you are so smart. I said, okay, then my name is Shintangzhou. The uncle who was snubbed by my father suddenly spoke, General Shin, it's getting late, the palace gate should be locked in a while. My father, got it, my daughter will trouble father-in-law Li. Father-in-law Li came over and took my other hand. He looked at my father and then looked at my mother embarrassedly and said, Mrs. Shin, our family still has to reply. My mother's hand holding me became heavier and heavier, and my hands hurt a little. My father looked at my mother and said, Yen Yen, let go. My mother let go of my hand, then hugged me tightly and said sorry. I remember that every time my mother went to the border to see my father, she would send me and Wanwan to my grandfather's house, and my mother hugged me tightly like this. But at my grandfather's house, I no longer had to read, write, or learn the rules. When we had enough fun and missed my mother would suddenly appear and pick us up. I comforted my mother, Mother, don't be sad, when I miss you, you can pick me up. My mother said yes. I was led by the uncle to a bigger hall than I had just been with the queen. There was a big bed in the palace, and the emperor was lying on the bed, and next to the bed were the queen and her brother. I saw the brother running up and holding his hand, afraid that he would shake off my hand. This time I held it tightly. Seeing that he was still sad, I just wanted to say that he wouldn't be sad, but the emperor called me over. Emperor, come here to uncle. When I got to the bed, the emperor touched my head with his hand. His hands were not as warm as my father's, and when my father's hands touched my head, I felt very warm. He pointed to the brother and said, is that brother good looking? He was better looking than my grandfather's brothers, and I nodded and said he looked good. He giggled again, laughing non-stop. He also said, that brother cries at every turn, are you willing to accompany him and comfort him? Thinking of promising my father to comfort him, I said, I do, my mother has taught me how to comfort a crying child. The brother said, Father, I didn't cry. The emperor said, good boy. Later, the queen took me to the palace just now. She asked me, do you want to sleep now? The queen finally remembered my name. I think I should tell her that my name is Shintangzhou, because I don't want to see my mother suddenly kneel down for her and answer her next time. I said, Queen, my name is Shintangzhou. She also touched my head, I know. I said, I'm hungry. She accompanied me to dinner, slept with me, and stayed with me for several days. Later, when Mama Moo came, she didn't accompany me. Mama Moo is my wet nurse. I asked my grandmother when my mother would come to pick me up, and she said it would be soon. I asked my grandmother again, did Wanwan miss me? I miss Wanwan very much, I miss her more than my mother, but she doesn't want me, so I don't want her. Grandma said, Wanwan misses me very much. Well, I told my grandmother that I also wanted to be Wanwan. Oh. I now have to read, write, and learn etiquette every day. I can't ask Wanwan to help me when I was at home. Joseon won't help me, because he doesn't pay attention to me, so I can't relax at all. I'm annoyed. Oh. Joseon is the emperor's only son, the good-looking brother. I was very tired from reading, writing, and learning etiquette every day, and I had no energy to go home at all. One day, Joseon went to accompany the emperor, and the master told me my favorite story, without lecturing. The most important thing is that there is actually my favorite chestnut crisp on the desk of the academy. I slapped the master with a grin and flattered him, "Master, you are the best master in the world." The master's story is very beautiful. If I were to be very engaged, I would definitely be very engaged, and I would keep asking what then, and then. But I couldn't listen to it that day, and I didn't know the ending of the story later. Later, when Mama Moo came to pick me up, I walked in the corridor back to the sleeping quarters. I seemed to see my mother and Wanwan, but in the blink of an eye they were gone again. I asked my grandmother, "Did you see Wanwan and my mother?" Grandma said, "I didn't see it, it was probably too dark." I was wrong. I think so, but I miss my mother a little. I don't know when she will come to pick me up. I had nightmares at night, and I dreamed that Wanwan was crying and asking me why I hadn't gone back. My mother said that the palace gate was too high for her to come in, and then Wanwan cried and fell ill. The next day I had no intention of going to school, so I ran to find the queen, and I said, "I miss my mother, when will she come to pick me up?" The queen said, "Read and write well, learn etiquette, your mother will come to pick you up soon." I said, "Queen, can you send me to my mother?" The queen said, "No, the palace wall is too high, and you can't go out if you become a queen." My mother taught me not to embarrass others, so I went back and continued my studies. Joseon still ignored me, and he looked a little sad every time he went to accompany the emperor. At first, I thought about promising my father to comfort him and hug him. But he rejected me every time, which made me not really want to comfort him. 8. One night, I was shaken up by my grandmother and dressed neatly, and I woke up after I dozed off after getting dressed, and I asked my grandmother what was wrong. Grandma said, "It's okay, it's just that the emperor misses you, and I want you to talk for a while." I was a little angry, but I wasn't angry when I thought it was the emperor's uncle. Because my mother said that he was a good emperor, but he was sick, and we had to take care of him. Since he wants to talk to me for a while, I'll take care of him. When I arrived at the main hall where the emperor was, I saw my father. I wanted to pounce on it and let my father hug me, but father-in-law Lee stood in front of me. He said, "Miss Shen, come with me, the emperor is waiting for you." Since the emperor is waiting for me to speak, I will go to talk to him, and then come to my father, ask him to take me home, and by the way, I can say goodbye to the emperor's uncle. The emperor's uncle's face looks rosier than before, and he looks so good today. He saw me and called me over. He talked to me a lot. He said that I was a good boy, let me accompany Zhou Xian, and told me not to wrong myself. He talked to me a lot. But he only said a few words to Joseon, asking him to be the best emperor of the great Zhou. Everyone in the temple is so sad, and I am so sad. Later the emperor asked us to go out, and he and the queen were alone for a while, and Joseon led me out of the hall. Zhou Shun led me, and we waited outside the hall for a long time. When it was almost dawn, the queen staggered out. She said, "Emperor, the emperor is dead." Everyone outside the hall cried, and so did I. Zhou Xian didn't cry, but he held my hand very hard. Later, a bell rang, and the queen fainted, and there was chaos outside the hall. I don't remember how I was taken back by my grandmother. 9. I stayed in the dormitory for many days. Occasionally, palace people pass by me, and they are in a hurry. After a while, everyone finally seemed less in a hurry. I finally met Joseon and the queen. The queen is moving out of her current sleeping palace, and she is moving to the longevity palace. But she didn't seem to have any intention of taking me. because she said, "Error, have you been living in this Changchun palace?" I think the queen must be joking with me, I'm only 5.5 years old. Is it really suitable? Later, I really lived alone in Changchun Palace. When I lived alone in Changchun Palace, I often dreamed of my mother in the middle of the night. She tucked me into the quilt and praised me for being a good boy. Later, I started the 3 o'clock line every day, got up early in the morning to greet the Queen Mother who lived in the Longevity Palace, and then learned the rules in the Longevity Palace. Then I guessed that when the Queen Mother and Zhou Sun went to the morning court, I went to the Emperor's Hall of Fame next to Changchun Palace to wait for the Queen Mother and Zhou Sun to eat the first meal of the day together. Then they started to get busy with national affairs and I started gags. Well, the Queen is now the Queen Mother and Zhou Sun is now the Emperor. 10. The Queen is in her 5th year as the Queen Mother, and I am 10 years old. I still go to the line at 3 o'clock every day, making jokes. When I was gauging that day, Zhou Sun suddenly raised his voice and said to the Queen Mother, "Since the Queen Mother thinks this is wrong, why don't you allow me to investigate thoroughly?" I pricked up my little ears of gossip and didn't hear anything. The Queen Mother said, "Error. If you learn this today, you go back first." Although I want to hear it, the dog's life is important. Because the Queen Mother usually doesn't want you to hear it, you will burp when you hear it. Someone used to eavesdrop on the Queen Mother and was cut down. In the evening, I lay comfortably on the toffee and watched my story meeting. Mama Zhang next to the Queen Mother came, carrying a food box in her hand. I saw this familiar configuration and knew it in my heart. Every time Zhou Sun and the Queen Mother quarreled, he didn't eat, and every time I went to deliver food. When I entered the outer hall with the food box, I didn't see Zhou Sun, so I put the food box on the table and prepared to go to the inner hall to find him. He definitely didn't go out, because Duke Ning was still waiting outside. The inner hall was dark, I called Zhou Sun's name, no one paid attention to me, I wanted to go and light the lighting candle. Zhou Sun suddenly said, "Don't order." I was startled and I looked for a voice, and he squatted on the edge of the bed. I went over and squatted opposite him to look at him, his head rested on my shoulder, and he said, "Shintangzhou, don't look at it." I patted him on the back. I said, "Zhou Sun, I won't be sad if I hug you." When I was still immersed in the plot of my love, Zhou Sun suddenly pulled away and said, "Shintangzhou, you are going to strangle me." I really want to sew his mouth up. He looked at me and restored his nobility and peace, and his face changed so quickly. Is this a compulsory thing for every emperor? I got up and knelt down and said to him, "Come out to eat, I'm starving to death." That's right. There is no kitchen in my dormitory, and every time they quarrel, Zhou Sun doesn't eat and I can't eat. I have a time when I really want to smoke Zhou Sun. But I don't dare because he is the emperor. 11. When we went out, some palace people had already laid out the food in the food box on the table. Looking at all my favorite dishes, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Zhou Sun glanced at me, promising. He was purely jealous. When I was about to cook the 3rd bowl of rice, someone hurriedly ran in, and he saw that I hesitated again. Zhou Sun gave him an eye knife, "Speak." The man knelt down with a plop, forget it, I can't listen to it. Troublesome. I said to Zhou Sun, "I'm full, I'll go back first." Zhou Sun called my name, Shintangzhou. I waved my hand to show that I was really full. 12. In a few days, it will be my 11th birthday. Every year on my birthday, there will be chestnut crisps that I can't usually eat, and my mother embroidered my purse and sewn socks. My mother can't do these things at all, her embroidered purse is ugly, and the socks she sews will leak her toes. But this year there was none of this, because my mother always looked at the high palace wall in the distance and was fascinated, sad. Then she didn't eat well and got sick. My grandfather loved his daughter so much that he asked my father to come back and take my mother away, and one also went. These are all things Zhou Sun told me. Looking at the clothes of various seasons made for me by the Queen Mother, there are many beautiful jewelry. I sighed, I am really the richest girl in the capital. Joseon said that I was a fan of money, and I reached out to him for a birthday gift. He said, you don't have to go to the Hall of Fame to read and write in the future. I asked the Queen Mother to invite the master to you, and you can go to the school to read and write. I said, Joseon, you are so good. He knocked on my head and said, Shin Tangjo, don't call me by name. I said, okay, Joseon. Since when did I stop calling brother Joseon? It seems to be his 3rd month as emperor. Since there was no Guan to help me with my homework, my knowledge was developed in all directions. Then I seemed to understand ignorantly, even if I thought about my mother many times, she would not come to pick me up. I hate Zhou Xian so much, I blame him. I and Wanwan are separated, it's all his fault, my mother will never come to pick me up again. But his hug would really make me less sad. I hugged him and cried out of breath. I said, Joseon, I miss my mother, I want to be Wanwan. Later, I never called him brother again, and when the Queen Mother found out that I called him by his name, she didn't say anything about me. She just looked at me and said, that's fine. 13. I returned to the school where I first entered the palace, and I was still the same master. I took a deep breath of this free air, it was really sweet. Because Zhou Shun was not here, the master did not need God's lessons, and I pestered the master to tell me stories. The master's story is much more interesting than the stories I usually collect. The master will tell the mountains and rivers of the Great Zhou, and also tell the wisdom stories of the market. It wasn't until the 5th day when the master told me the story that we were captured by the Queen Mother. I was trained by the Queen Mother, and was not allowed to eat dinner. In the evening, Joseon came and swaggered in with a food box. I scolded him for being so low-key, and if the Queen Mother found out, he would be disciplined. Joseon arranged the food in the food box on the table, and the bowls and bowls made a crisp sound. I glared at him and asked him to tap it. He impatiently scolded me as a fool. Looking at a table of my favorite dishes, I decided not to worry about him. Why do I eat so much like the Queen Mother's kitchen? I asked Joseon in fear, the Queen Mother doesn't know, right? Joseon said impatiently, I don't know. I concentrated on cooking and Joseon said, Shin Tangzhou, you are really stupid. I suppressed my temper and humbly asked, what do you say? He didn't answer me again, what a weirdo. 14. The next day I went to school early again and found that there were 2 tables, and there was already a person sitting at the other table. I hadn't seen a stranger for a long time, and I ran over to ask her who she was. She looked impatient and didn't want to pay attention to me, and said, you are Shin Tangzhou. My eyes lit up, She said, you are the future queen. Just as I was about to refute her, the master came in, and the master knocked on the table and said, be cautious. The master asked me to go back to my seat and sit down, and after I sat down, the master said, then today we will talk about the topic of cautious words. The girl next to me snorted coldly. The master began his long speech. 2 After school, I ran to Xingming Hall non-stop. I want to ask which cute lady came to school today, and the fastest and most complete is of course to ask Joseon. When I arrived at the gate of the palace, I gave Dukening a look, and he also replied to me with a look. The Queen Mother was not there. I ran to Zhou Xian again, and before I could speak, he said, my name is Zhao Yu, 1 year older than you, the companion my mother found for you, and she is the daughter of the head of the Hanlin Academy. I asked him, how do you know I'm asking this? Zhou Shun put down the fold, looked up at me and said, guess. I guess Zhou Shun is a fool. In the evening, when I was having dinner at the Queen Mother's place, the Queen Mother asked me, Error, how are you getting along with Miss Zhao? I replied to her, very good. Maybe my tone was too brisk, and the Queen Mother said, just be happy. I said, Queen Mother, I am very happy. 15. The next day, I went to school happily. I arrived at the school early, but I didn't expect her to be earlier than me. I asked her, why are you so early? She said, of course it's because it's far away, but can it still be because I like to study? It makes sense. After a while, before the master came, she came over and asked me, are you familiar with this palace? I nodded. After all, I lived for so long. She said impatiently, why do you look dumbfounded? Why are you still attacking personally? She said again, forget it, do you know where there is fun? I don't think the palace is fun anywhere. I haven't spoken yet. She said, forget it, you definitely don't think it's fun anywhere. I looked at her approvingly. She also said, listen to my mother, the imperial garden in the palace is beautiful, far away, you take me there. She was really the most talkative girl I had ever seen. She pushed me and let me talk. I said, it's not far, but we're going to have a class. She rolled her eyes and said, it's okay, I have a way. Then she went back to her desk and started writing. I was curious and took a closer look and saw her write, Master, Shintangzhou has a stomach ache, I took her to see a doctor, and I have told my family. I said, why don't you say you're sick? She looked at me and said perfunctorily, write about me next time, write about me next time. Then I watched her put the piece of paper neatly on the master's table. Then she asked me which was the side door. I pointed to the side door, and she skillfully led me out of it. I took her to the imperial garden, and I said, look, there's really nothing fun. She pulled me into the remote woods and said, that's because you can't play. Later we saw the bird's nest in the tree, and she said that there were definitely bird eggs in that nest. She asked me if I could climb trees. I said I wouldn't. She said she wouldn't either, but she had seen others climb trees. She thinks she can. Then she really climbed up in an ugly position. The big tree is very dense, she is on the branch. I asked her if she has bird eggs. She said no, but there was a nest on it. I was a little scared. I told her not to climb anymore. She didn't listen and insisted on going up to see the bird's nest. Then she really saw it, and I asked her if she had. She said yes, and she happily took out the eggs to show me. Then she really couldn't come down, she hugged the trunk and cried, and I was in a hurry below. Later she cried above, I cried below, it was almost dark and I didn't come down. Xiaoyu was tired of crying, and she began to dislike me. She said, don't cry, or you go find someone to save me. Thinking about the Queen Mother, I said to Xiaoyu, why don't you jump down, and I'll catch you? Xiaoyu said, are you guilty when you say this? False. I drained my brain, and I couldn't think of anyone to look for to help me. I ran to find Zhou Sun saw me crying with red eyes. He left the table and came over to ask me what's wrong. I pulled him and ran towards the grove, and it was dark when I arrived. Xiaoyu saw me crying even louder. I thought you wouldn't come, you have been gone for so long. Big brother, you don't know how big this palace is. Zhou Sun asked me what was going on, and I said you get her down first. Zhou Sun waved back, and a black shadow flew up the tree, and moved Xiaoyu down. Just as I was about to explain what was going on, another black shadow said to him, Your Majesty, the Queen Mother is here. I said weakly, can you not let the Queen Mother know? Xiaoyu was still crying. Zhou Sun asked Xiaoyu to shut up, and then he ordered, send Miss Zhao back to the Zhao mansion safely. Then he led me and the Queen Mother to bump into each other. I'm probably going to sleep again. The Queen Mother asked, what's going on? Zhou Sun replied, Era said that there was a flower over there that she had never seen blooming, and he called me to come and take a look. The Queen Mother glanced at us, sighed and said, well, don't wander around so late, you can send Era back. Then the Queen Mother left. I breathed a sigh of relief, and on the way back, Zhou Sun asked me, are you so afraid of the Queen Mother? Me, no, I'm just afraid of being punished for copying books. Zhou Sun smiled and said, I'm afraid too. I told Zhou Sun that we couldn't come down because we dug out bird eggs, and Zhou Sun scolded me for being foolish. I told Zhou Sun that it was fun to dig out bird eggs, and he said that I was naive. When he was about to reach the door of the sleeping quarters, Zhou Sun said, why did you cry just now? I couldn't answer, so I asked Zhou Sun, will Xiaoyu come again tomorrow? Zhou Sun also touched my head, and he said yes. Zhou Sun said yes, he would definitely be, he never lied to me. 16. The next day, I went to school early. I didn't see Zhao Yu, and when the master came, she didn't come either. The master may have seen me frequently looking at the door and the empty seats, and the master said, Miss Zhao is just sick and on leave for a day, Miss Shen doesn't have to worry so much. Me, really? Master, really? I had to step in. Then how can we leave our classmates behind? Master, tell me a story today. Confucius. The next day, I went to school early and found that Zhao Yu was really here. I hurriedly went up and said with concern, Zhao Yu, are you okay? Zhao Yu said, you can. I thought I would be trained when I went home, but nothing happened. I won't dig out bird eggs next time, it's not fun at all. After saying that, she was happy herself, and then I was happy, and we laughed non-stop. This is the happiest day since I entered the palace. Later, Zhao Yu took me to row to pick lotus seeds, and then I couldn't row back, so Zhou Shun came to save us. She also took me to fly a kite, and then the kite hung on the tree, and she climbed up and couldn't get down again. But this time she was much calmer. She hugged the trunk and shouted to me, Shen Tangzhou, do you want to come up and take a look? You can see the outside of the palace here. Can you see outside the palace? I asked her, can you see the general's mansion? She said she didn't know the general's mansion, and asked me to see it myself. I said I didn't dare to look at it. Then Zhao Yu scolded me as a coward, and later Zhou Xuanlai moved her down. We have caused a lot of trouble together, and Zhou Sun has given us a backlog every time. Zhou Sun and Zhao Yu are getting closer and closer. Later, the Queen Mother saw the pearl hairpin she wanted to give me on Zhao Yu's head. After the morning meal, the Queen Mother said, who did the Emperor give the pearl hairpin he took from me last time? Zhou Sun said, Zhao Yu. The Queen Mother put down her chopsticks heavily, and I looked at them as if they were going to stand up again, and I silently lowered my sense of existence. The Queen Mother said, that's the pearl hairpin I found for you. Me. This sense of existence cannot be reduced. Zhou Shun looked at me and said, I'll find her a better one. I thought it was unnecessary. I clung to the Queen Mother and acted coquettishly. I said, the Queen Mother is the best for me. I have too many pearl hairpins, the Emperor asked me, and I agreed to him before sending it. In fact, he had asked me before. 17. In the third year that Zhao Yu was with me, she suddenly stopped coming. The Queen Mother said that Zhao Yu was old and wanted to prepare for marriage at home, and it was inconvenient to go to the palace to study. I was sad, but I couldn't help it. Just as I was about to give Zhou Xian the purse that Zhao Yu asked me to help give to Zhou Xian, I was cut off by the Queen Mother. Then I was trained again and punished for copying books. Then I moved back to the Hall of Fame, and now Zhou Sun himself was watching the memorial on the desk on the upper level, and the Queen Mother and I each had a desk below. But now I generally don't sit for too long, because now the Queen Mother and Zhou Sun quarrel more and more often. Usually when I just sat down and was a little irritable, Zhou Sun would argue with the Queen Mother. At first, the Queen Mother would tell me to go back first, but now I see them quarreling, so I quickly leave to superscript 1 with interest. After they argued like this for more than half a year, the Queen Mother was no longer in power. I was 14 years old, and Zhou Sun was 16 years old, and Zhou Sun held real power. I don't have to go to the Hall of Fame to read and write anymore. But before I was happy for 2 days, I was taken by the Queen Mother to learn how to manage the harem. The Queen Mother taught very seriously, and I learned very slowly. One evening, when I returned to Changchun Palace from the Queen Mother after studying, I met Zhou Sun, whom I hadn't seen for many days. He asked the little father-in-law beside him to tell the Queen Mother to say hello later. Then he followed me, walking on this road that I had walked thousands of times, and I suddenly felt very sad. I said, why do you think your father doesn't trust my father? Do you think my father will treason? He said, Shen Tangzhou, don't you want to stand by my side? I said, no. Then he looked at me and was silent for a long time, and then he said yes. I want to tell him, I miss my mother, I want to be Wanwan, and there are too many rules in the palace, I can't learn them at all. Before I could speak, he left. 18. When the ginkgo leaves in the palace are yellow, autumn hunting will be held. During the years of Joseon's reign, he never held a hunt. Joseon said that hunting is a feast for military generals, and he said that I can look forward to it. What can I expect? I neither could ride a horse nor shoot an arrow, and I suspected he was sarcastic about me. I told Joseon my suspicions, and he scolded the fool again. And then I broke with him unilaterally, many times. The ways I broke up with him included, but were not limited to, giving him a white eye when the Queen Mother and others were not around, and stepping on his heels after him. On this day, I was eating Mama Zhang's newly made jerky in the Empress Dowager's palace, and Joseon's Dukning came to inform me that Joseon was waiting for me to choose a horse in the stable. I just wanted to refuse when I saw the Queen Mother looking at me with loving eyes. I couldn't be too unreasonable to Joseon in front of the Queen Mother, and I would be talked about by the grandmother around her who taught me etiquette for at least half a year. There were many horses in the stable, and they looked almost the same at a glance, but only one was too eye-catching, because it was darker than the others. I stood still before the dark horse. Joseon went around from opposite me, he reached out to touch the horse, and the horse rubbed Joseon's hand affectionately. I said, "Your horse." Joseon, "Well, do you like it?" I also tried to touch the horse, and then it dodged. Joseon laughed, giggling, and I said that I was really licking the dog in the horse. Joseon said that this is a good horse that has been rare for several years, and he also said that a horse that recognizes the master is a good horse. Seeing him defend it like this, I said, "What's wrong? You want to give it to me?" Joseon said, "I can give you away, but you can't ride this horse when hunting." I asked him why, and Joseon said, "Because I am a living target all the time. If you die because of one of my horses, how wronged I am." I said it made sense, and then I chose a super inconspicuous brown horse along this line. I learned to ride a horse before hunting, and Joseon was surprised. He sighed that such a thing as blood is really mysterious. I was so proud that I ran to show off to the Queen Mother on the day I learned it, and the Queen Mother praised me for having no dog girl. Then I took away all the jerky made by Mama Zhang. On that day, the Queen Mother also sent a lot of riding clothes to my palace. Before leaving, I found out that the Queen Mother was not going. I ran to the Queen Mother's palace, and wanted to ask her why she didn't go. But Mama Zhang next to the Queen Mother did not allow me to ask, and stopped me at the door of the inner temple. Mama Zhang told me that the Queen Mother and the late Emperor made love while hunting. Then I walked away with interest. Since Joseon wanted to ride a horse and the Queen Mother didn't go, the ultra-luxurious carriage could only be enjoyed by me alone. By the time I got to the paddock, I was already tired. I got out of the carriage and ran straight towards Joseon. He was talking to people in twos and threes, and when he saw me approaching, he dismissed the people around him who were talking to him. I asked him where I lived, and he pointed out. I was about to run towards the shed he pointed to. Thinking of something, I turned around and asked him, "Which shed do you live in?" He said, "The one next door to you." I saw that he stopped talking and he asked me, "Is there anything else?" I thought about it and said, "I live in the shed next door to you." "You put some masters next door." He said, "Breathe." Then he walked up to me again, pointed to the sheds around us, and said to me that shed are all masters. I smiled and said, "Okay, I'll go to the rest meeting first, take a carriage, I'm going to tire me to death, and I'll never come again next time." I just said there is nothing to look forward to. I just need to sit under Joseon and watch the young players run into the forest with Joseon's order. And then I started to wait a long time. Looking at Joseon's calm face, I quietly asked him, "Isn't it boring?" He glanced at me. Some people came back one after another. Finally, everyone came back at the allotted time. There is a masked young general who looks more prey than others in front of him. I think he should be today's lottery winner. Sure enough, after a while, someone handed him the small flag. When I was about to get up and go back to the shed to rest, and then come out in the evening to eat meat and drink a big bowl, The man next to the masked general suddenly said, "Report to the emperor, all the prey of my lord is given to Miss Shen Tangzhou, and the color head is also given to Miss Shen." I froze when I got up, and then I looked at the young general, who was about the same stature as me, standing there in black clothes. Because I wasn't very close, I couldn't see who it was, I just thought she was very upright. Zhou Sun looked at me meaningfully and said, "Yes." Then I was stuffed with a very heavy dagger by Zhou Shun in a daze. "Oh. Today's color head is a dagger that looks very delicate." I quietly asked Zhou Sun, "Is this dagger valuable?" He glanced at me again. 19. In the evening, at the banquet in the open air, many chefs were grilling meat, and there was a lot of wine on the table. When I found a good place to take Mama Mu to take my seat, my wrist was grabbed. I look at him face to face now, and he seems to be about the same height as me. I said thank you for giving me the colorful head. He looked at me and didn't speak, and I asked him what was wrong. Then he glanced at the people around him, and the man next to him said to me, "My lord just wants to ask you, do you like that dagger just now?" I said I like it very much. How can I accept a gift from someone else, and then tell others why I don't like it? I could see his dark eyes on the whole face, and my eyes lit up all of a sudden when I looked at him. Before I could react, his hand holding my wrist suddenly intertwined with my fingers, and he pulled me and ran out. 20. It's really strange, I haven't seen Wan for 10 years, but when she and I intertwined my fingers, I just knew she was Wan. She pulled me to a fairly quiet place, but I could still see the banquet. Just now, on the field, the person with a tall posture, outstanding temperament, and heroic posture was actually Wan. I called her in surprise, "Wan Yuan." She took off her mask and looked at me with a grin, and I looked at her face that was exactly like mine, smiled and laughed and cried. I saw Wan crying, and I was shocked. Wan's aura really doesn't look like a crying person. I held her in my arms at a loss, hugged her tightly, and gave her a good breath, and I was really skilled at this job. After crying, she looked anxiously at me with red eyes that I wanted to say but couldn't, and I told her not to worry. Then she pulled me back to the banquet. She found the man next to her just now, pointed to his throat, and then the man said to me, "Back to Miss Shen Tangzhou, my lord can't speak now." I asked him, "What's wrong with Wan?" He said, "If you are sick you will be fine." Then I asked her why she was sick, and if it hurt when she was sick, and then Wan's eyes turned red again. "All right." I shut up. She smiled and shook her head at me, and then touched my stomach. I said, "Are you hungry?" She nodded, and I said I was hungry. Then I scanned the audience again, ready to find a seat again, and found that only Zhou Sun was still empty. Duke Ning also saw me, waved for us to pass. I pulled Wan over, and when I got to Wan to salute Zhou Sun, I also saluted. Zhou Shun looked at me and said, "It's really rare, sit down." Then I pulled Wan and sat under Zhou Sun. Wan wanted to cut mutton for me, but Zhou Sun said that I didn't like to eat mutton, which made Wan very embarrassed. I told him to shut up, he ignored me, and he told Wan about my favorite meat. Later, he gave me the rabbit leg in front of him that I loved to eat, and I didn't appreciate it. Sure enough, without the suppression of the Queen Mother, I was particularly presumptuous towards Zhou Sun. 21. When I was full, I pulled Wan to leave the table. Wan put the mask in her hand on Zhou Sun's table, and then bowed and prepared to leave. I looked at the mask on the table, and wanted to ask Zhou Sun what was going on. A bunch of middle-aged men came over to talk to him, and I gave him a look and Wan and saluted and left. I took Wan to my shed. On the way, Wan went to pick up a baggage, which contained all kinds of strange things. She pushed in front of me, and I asked her, "Give it all to me." She nodded. She took out all these things and taught me how to play. By the time we finished studying the things, it was already very late, and Mama Mu reminded us that it was time to sleep, so Wan and I went to lie down on the bed. I asked Wan, "How are my father and mother?" Wan took my hand and wrote "good" in my palm, paused for a while and wrote "I miss you," and after a while she wrote "What about you?" I told Wan that I was fine. The Queen Mother was very good to me. She moved out of Changchun Palace, which made her sad, and would come back to tuck the quilt F. Or me. The dishes in her small kitchen are all my favorite foods. She will make a lot of good-looking new clothes and look for good-looking beads and hairpins for me everywhere. She would let Joseon accompany me, and when she knew that I was lonely, she would find Zhao Yu to accompany me. Zhao Yu is also very good to me, Mama Mu is also very good to me, and Duke Ning is also very good to me, always helping me cover. Joseon is also very good to me. Won touched my head, and then I couldn't tell Won that Joseon was good to me, so I fell asleep. When I woke up, it was almost noon. I was nervous, and I breathed a sigh of relief thinking that I was not in the palace. Since I woke up, Won has been staring at me. I asked her what she was looking at. She wrote "good looking" in the palm of my hand. Ah, we look the same. I could only respond to her with a smile. During the meal, Won asked me what I wanted to do today. I thought about it. I seem to only ride horses. I said I wanted to go horseback riding today, and she said she was going to lead me. When I packed up and went to the entrance of the forest farm, Won stood there with a horse, her posture upright. She waved to me, I walked over, and she handed me the horse rope in her hand. I took it suspiciously, and Won told me in the way I wrote in the palm of my hand that this horse that looked more handsome than Joseon's horse was called Lei, and it was a 1,000-mile horse trained by my father. I asked if a 1,000-mile horse could travel 1,000 miles. Won nodded heavily. I said that the palace is not that big, this horse is too wasteful for me. Won shook her head frantically, looking like she was about to cry. Why don't you accept our father's gifts, and you still have to cry? I quickly said that I liked it so much, so I was just polite. I reached out and touched Lei. It didn't dodge like Joseon's horse, but it didn't give face, it looked very arrogant. This horse was a little taller than the unnamed horse I usually rode, and I turned over to estimate that the posture was not as handsome as I usually was. I was a little worried about this. After I got on the horse, Won helped me adjust the posture of my feet. Then Won walked a few steps away and told me with her eyes, "You run up and try." If you ask me why I know what her eyes mean, I'll tell you twin telepathy. Good horses generally have a bad temper, referring to Joseon's licking dog horse. I just wanted to run up and try, but it started to be disobedient and circled wildly in place. Then a black shadow flew behind me, and the black shadow tightened the reins of my hand, and Lei ran happily. I looked sideways and it was Won. Her eyes looked straight ahead with a firm gaze, effortlessly steering the thunder calendar. I wasn't very happy and had no driving experience at all. In the evening, I ran to show off to Joseon. I had a 1,000-mile horse. Joseon despised me for not recognizing the goods, and he said that the stables in the palace were all 1,000-mile horses. Is it so corrupt? I asked him, is that little brown is also a 1,000-mile horse? He said, you go, I'm so angry that my brain hurts. I raised my foot and was about to leave, when he called me again, Shintangzhou, are you happy? I said, yes. 22. The next day, when I was wondering whether to continue riding the thunder calendar, Joseon came. He said, what's wrong? Want to give up if you can't ride well? Shintangzhou, don't give up when you encounter difficulties, okay? His tone was full of helplessness. This tone. I'm entangled in riding a horse. Besides, how does he know that I can't ride well? I just wanted to ask him if he was following me, and he himself said, although they are all 1,000-mile horses, I think the horse that General Shin gave you must be the best of the best horses. Good horses recognize people from the beginning, and I know better than you in your riding skills. He touched the thunder calendar, and then the thunder calendar was also very close to him. I was not feeling well. Are horses so dog-legged now? Do you know which official is big? Joseon asked the people behind him to pull Lei out. Joseon helped me on the horse. He told me to use a strong aura to deter it and said a lot. I asked Joseon, do I have a strong aura? Joseon was silent, and then he said, you pretend you have it, it's as stupid as you, and you can't see it even if you pretend it. Later it really worked, Layli was obedient and rode well, but I still didn't dare to ride too fast. Joseon rode his dog-legged horse and said to me, Shintangzhou, if you run boldly, I will be behind you, and will not let you fall. Then as soon as I strained my legs, Masa Yazi ran out. At dinner, I went to Joseon for dinner with the rabbit leg given by Wanwan. Joseon nibbled on the rabbit leg I gave him, and asked me to give it to him tomorrow, and I let him dream. Then he said that the father-in-law on the right side of the door was the Queen Mother, and asked me to take it easy, and go back carefully to copy a book for a year. I whispered to him to shut up. He whispered to me, Shintangzhou, some difficulties are not as difficult as they seem at all. I whispered back to him, this is different. He said, what's different? I say it's different everywhere. Then he didn't eat the rabbit leg, asked me to leave quickly, he was going to criticize the fold. He said but I was angry. I went out and took a good look at my father-in-law on the right, and I greeted him with a smile. He was so scared that he knelt down to greet me, and then he startled me again. After helping him up, I left non-stop. For many days afterwards, I rode the thunder calendar happily through the forest. One hunted a lot of rabbits, and I looked at the rabbit that was shot through by an arrow and sighed, they are all dead. I just wanted to feel that it might affect the taste, so Wanwan asked me if I wanted a live rabbit and she caught it for me. I told her no, I just love to eat spicy rabbit legs. Later in the days in the paddock, there were rabbit legs sent by Wanwan every day, and there were various flavors intimately. Of course, I will send it to Joseon every day, and I will let the little father-in-law on the right pass it on in a rule, so that Dukning thinks that he is going to fall out of favor. I was going to go to the grass behind the shed with Wanwan, but before leaving, Wanwan was called away by the mun who had been by her side. I had to go by myself, and I met Joseon again after walking a few steps out. He asked me what I was going to do, and I told him to digest food, and he said it was just right, and then he pulled me to Layli. I said I wouldn't ride a horse, then turned around and was ready to go. After walking a few steps, my waist tightened and I was pulled onto Joseon's horse, and before I could speak, the horse ran out. I asked Joseon if he could beat Wanwan. Joseon said he didn't know, but now I can't hear her even if I call her, so I shut up knowingly. After running for a long time, Joseon helped me off the horse, and in front of me was a hillside full of small flowers of various colors. Joseon asked me if I was good looking. I had been feeling uncomfortable in my stomach, and I couldn't hold back and vomit. Joseon silently patted me on the back, and after vomiting, I felt much better, and then began to blame him for taking me to ride a horse when I was eating. He asked me if I was still uncomfortable. I said it wasn't very uncomfortable. Then he gritted his teeth, and told me that I would not have any surprises for the rest of my life. I asked if I wanted to walk together, and his face was better, and as soon as he tied up the horse, the rain poured down. Then he began to untie the horse rope again expressionlessly, and by the time we returned to camp, we were all soaked. Mamamoo was busy, afraid that I would catch a cold, and when I cleaned myself up, I came out and found Joseon sitting there waiting for me. He saw me come out and said, "Come and drink this ginger soup." I don't like the taste of ginger. I said I don't need to drink that thing when I'm strong. He said that if I don't drink, I will go to the Hall of Fame to copy books when I go back. Count you ruthless, I endured the humiliation, and went over to drink that bowl of ginger soup, and there was another bowl next to it after drinking. He said that he drank that bowl too. I told him to leave a line today, and see you in the future. He said that the bowl was a medicine for bloating, who made me eat without moderation deserved it. Under his gaze, I drank that bowl too. I finished the medicine and left satisfied. The next day I still had a fever, and when Mamamoo found out that I had a fever, she hurriedly went to the imperial doctor, and I asked her not to go. I thought about it and thought that today is the day to return to the palace, and after a while, the imperial doctor will come, and then Joseon will be recruited, then I will definitely not be able to return to the palace today. It's too troublesome, and the return to the palace starts to be arranged and planned a long time in advance. After all, Joseon is a hot living target. I said, I've been out for so long, and I'm a little worried about the Queen Mother. Seeing that I insisted, Mamamoo sighed and told me that I was uncomfortable and must tell her, and I said yes. When leaving, the officials and young generals in the paddock came to kneel and see them off. I saw Won in the carriage. She was standing in the middle of a group of young generals, and I could recognize her at a glance. Her back is always straight, and her eyes are always so firm. The grandmother who taught etiquette in the palace always asked me to walk with my back up, and I felt so tired. I asked Won if she kept her back so straight all the time, wouldn't she be tired? She smiled and shook her head. She is now a Won with an official title, and Joseon told me that Won is a famous young general at the border. He also said that if Won was a boy, our family might have another young general. I told Joseon that she was a girl, and she could too. She must be able to do what Won wants to do. I waved to her, and she smiled and looked at me. It's really amazing to grow up. I took the carriage back to the palace to be Shintangzhou, and Won would return to the border to be Shinweiwei, and I was so calm in my heart. 23. On the way back, we were assassinated. Joseon found out that I had a fever, and I told him that I was fine, and he had to stop and rectify, and then we were assassinated. A lot of people came, and a large group of people with masks couldn't help but start fighting. At first, Joseon protected me and fought with them, but then there were too many people besieging him, so he handed me over to his secret guard, and Joseon asked the secret guard to take me away. I saw that Joseon was being pressed and beaten by them in order to protect me, so I cooperated with the secret guard and walked a little away. I took advantage of the chaos to pick up a knife and held it in my hand, and I held the knife and told the secret guard firmly, I will do martial arts and let him protect Joseon. He struggled for a moment and rushed away. The number of people besieging Joseon gradually decreased, and I was on the outskirts. I don't know which bastard shouted, go and arrest that woman, she is Shintangzhou. Then I saw several people coming towards me. I was holding a knife, ready to fight with them, and as soon as I lifted it, my knife was cut off by someone who came to me. The knife bounced off my hand so painfully that I exclaimed in pain. Joseon called me from afar, Shintangzhou. It's all broken. As soon as the moon was about to reach out to grab me, he was shot through by an arrow, and everyone who came around was shot through, like a rabbit shot through by Won in the paddock. Won came, and she came with a group of people. She dismounted and ran towards me anxiously, touching me up and down. I said I wasn't hurt, and asked her to hurry up and help Joseon. She took 2 steps with her gun and came back. She reached out to wipe the blood off my face, and then turned around and went to Joseon's side. Soon the scene was controlled. These assassins were quite professional. The maid and the grandmother were all tied up, and no one was injured. There were only a few assassins who were caught, the others were dead, and some assassins committed suicide by taking poison, and Won quickly unloaded the assassin's chin. Looking at Won's skillful technique, I felt that my jaw also hurt. Suddenly relaxed, my head became more and more dizzy. I saw Joseon running towards me, still saying something, but I couldn't hear clearly. I closed my eyes and didn't remember anything. When I woke up, I was lying on the bed, and next to the bed were Won and Joseon. I asked where this was, and Joseon replied that it was an inn. Looking at Won's anxious look, I told her that I was fine, but I was scared. I looked at Joseon again. His face was very bad. Joseon said, I had a fever when I left, why didn't you tell me? I retorted to him, it wasn't because of your surprise that I had a fever. He shut up sensibly, and then he went out, and when he came back, he had a bowl of medicine that looked bitter in his hand. I suspected he was guilty because he gave me a candied fruit after I drank the medicine, which was sweet and sour and delicious. Then I said I wanted more, and he paused and gave me another one. I said a few more, and he made me inch less. Mamamoo came to collect the bowl. She said that when I get better, I can eat as much as I want, and this kind of candied fruit will be the antidote if I eat too much. But if I don't drink medicine, I won't want to eat candied fruit at all. Out of safety concerns, we set off for the palace the next day. Escorted us back to the palace by Wanwan. I asked Wanwan to ride in the carriage with me. Wanwan shook her head and refused. She said to protect me outside. Then Wanwan appeared by the window of my carriage from time to time, and I looked at her on my stomach, and she smiled back to me. I asked her, "Why did you come yesterday?" She paused for a moment and pointed to her chest, and I said, "Telepathy of twins." She thought for a while and smiled, then smiled and nodded. Every time Wanwan leaves my window, Joseon makes up for it, and every time he asks if it is uncomfortable. At first, I was still angry to reply to her that I was not uncomfortable, but when he asked me if I was uncomfortable for the 10th time, I chose to close the window and ignore him. Then he came up and rode in the carriage with me. Anyway, the carriage is so big, let him do it. The next afternoon, we arrived at the gate of the capital, and Wanwan could only send us here, because she was a military general at the border and could not enter the capital without being summoned. The queue at the city gate to pick up the holy carriage was already waiting. It is estimated that God saw that I was having too much fun in the paddock, jealous of me, and arranged 2 scenes for me to separate from Wanwan. Wanwan dismounted and came over, and Joseon helped me get out of the carriage. Joseon said to Wanwan, "You escorted yesterday, what reward do you want?" Wanwan waved to the back, and the man who was beside Wanwan that day came over, and Wanwan wrote and painted in the palm of his hand. Then the man said, "Back to the emperor, Miss Shin wants to send something to Miss Shin Tangzhou every month. I want to remind Wanwan not to do this. Let him give you a promotion." The twins' telepathy fails at critical moments. Joseon thought for a long time and said, "It can only be sent once every 3 months, and everything must be passed through my hands." Wanwan bowed. Wanwan reached out and touched my head, as warm as my father's hand. Then I couldn't hold back and threw myself into her arms, and I asked her to tell her parents that I was fine, and that they didn't have to worry. I got into the carriage and waved to her, and she looked at me with a smile. Wanwan turned around and got on the horse, and the carriage moved forward, and I didn't lower the curtain, and I could still see Wanwan smiling. Wanwan suddenly stretched out her right hand, and untied her cloak. My right hand and neck were covered with gold and silver jewelry that I had given her, shining with gold and silver, which made my eyes tingle a little. The pain made me cry uncontrollably, and Joseon reached out and touched my head. "I'll just say I'm the richest girl in the capital. Look at my gifts, no one will dislike them, and if you don't like them, you can't help it, that's all I have." I took Joseon's hand away and said with emotion, "Joseon, how can there be a girl like Wanwan, always so upright, always so firm, with endless energy all over her body, and so bright when she smiles?" Joseon looked at what I wanted to say and didn't say anything in the end. I guess he didn't know. The carriage stopped halfway. Joseon got out of the carriage and came up with a bag of things after a while. I asked him what it was. He said it was chestnut crisp. I lifted the curtain. The restaurant was still called Chuani Restaurant, but the place had changed, and the restaurant looked bigger and more magnificent. Joseon opened the chestnut crisp and handed it to me. I looked at him and took it. I said, "Joseon, thank you." He raised his eyebrows and asked me what I was thankful for. "Let Wanwan accompany me, teach me to ride a horse, break the palace rules, and let Wanwan send things into the palace and buy me chestnut cakes. And many more." I said, "A lot. Soon we will arrive at the palace gate, and we will change to a new carriage to return to the palace." I got up and was about to get off the carriage. Joseon grabbed my wrist and said, "Shin Tangzhou, don't say thank you next time, is that okay?" After saying that, he got out of the car first, leaving me alone there. My thoughts were flying, not saying thank you, what to say. Well done, it's all you should. When I got out of the carriage, I only saw the young man riding away from the corners of his clothes. 24. I am going to send all the furs I have brought back from the paddock to the Queen Mother. As soon as I arrived at the Empress Dowager's palace, the Empress Dowager asked me if I was injured and if I was scared. I reassured her that Joseon and I were fine. When the fur was taken out, the Queen Mother said in surprise, "So much." I was so proud. Of course, Wanwan and I hunt almost every day, and we don't want many bad looks. The Queen Mother said to hunt every day. Just you and Wanwan? I said yes. The Queen Mother asked me if I had gone to a windward slope. There are many small flowers that are very beautiful. I thought about it and only went to a slope with Jo Sun. I angrily told the Queen Mother that Jo Sun made me vomit, and later let me get caught in the rain, and give me a fever. I hope she will scold Jo Sun fiercely for being unreliable. After I finished speaking, the Queen Mother muttered on her forehead, "Useless thing." I thought I heard it wrong. How could the Queen Mother say such a thing? I asked the Queen Mother what she said again, but the Queen Mother still held her forehead, and said that she was a little dizzy, and asked me to go back and rest quickly. I thought that we were gone, and the Queen Mother didn't take good care of herself, and I wanted to stay and take care of her. But the Queen Mother asked me to leave quickly, and she said that her head hurt even more when she looked at me. I had to go back to Changchun Palace 3 times in one step. 25. After coming back, Joseon was even busier. I could hardly see others. The Queen Mother was not too busy, and I was not busy. I still go to the Queen Mother early every day to learn how to manage palace affairs, and go back to Changchun Palace after dinner in the evening. The Queen Mother still taught very seriously, and I still learned very slowly. Joseon sometimes came to the Longevity Palace for dinner, and after the meal, the Queen Mother would ask Joseon to send me back. On the way back, Jojo will ask me how I have learned these days. I sometimes say it's okay. Sometimes it is difficult, many, and complicated. When I said it was okay, Joseon would touch my head with a smile and praise me for my intelligence. When I said it was difficult, he would tell me not to give up, and then I would laugh at him, and he would grit his teeth, and call me by my full name. And on the way back I said, "Can't we say something else?" He said that he just wants to care about this every day. I said that being an emperor is really idle. Later he would tell me what the master would talk about in class. I regret why I talked so much in the first place. We were walking down that road, and suddenly it snowed in the sky. Later, I received a package from Wanguan, all of which were strange and fun, and each thing had a detailed explanation. There are also purses and socks sewn by my mother, each of which has 5, which looks much better than before. There is also a big gold hairpin from my father. They all wish me a happy birthday. When I reached adulthood, the Queen Mother hurriedly held a very lively birthday banquet for me. At the banquet, I finally saw Zhao Yu again. She sat a little far away from me, and I waved to say hello to her. She smiled and nodded to me, and then stopped looking at me. She sat there in a well-mannered manner, and if I hadn't played with her for 3 years, I would have thought she was so dignified and beautiful. Why do we all have so many faces? Should I also have many facets? It should be. I was fascinated to think about what side I had, and my hand was gently patted. I turned my head, and the Queen Mother looked at me gently, reached out to stroke the broken hair on my forehead, and asked me what's wrong. I blurted out that I was fine. It dawned on me that I had a duplicitous side. 26. My birthday party. I slipped away early. I had been sitting obediently next to the Queen Mother, listening to the chirping of the people below, and then Duke Ning came, and said something in the Queen Mother's ear. Then Duke Ning said to me again, "Miss Shen, the Emperor is looking for you." I glanced at the Queen Mother, she nodded gently to me, and then I came out with Duke Ning. As soon as I came out, I saw Joseon sitting in a carriage dressed in ordinary clothes. I walked over to him and asked, "What are you?" Joseon stretched out his hand to me, and he said, "Come up, take you to a place." Joseon took me to the moat tower. It's so high. It's so beautiful. You can see how far it is. You can see the market not far away that has not yet dispersed at night, you can see the restaurant business in the distance, and you can see the lights of thousands of houses in the capital. I exclaimed, "That's great." Looking at this ordinary and unusual scene, I couldn't help but look sideways at Joseon. Joseon knew that I was looking at him without looking at him, and he asked me, "Shin Tangzhou, why are you looking at me?" Sometimes when I can't sleep in the middle of the night to get up to breathe, I can see Joseon's Hall of Fame from my window, and it is often brightly lit up in the middle of the night. I said, "Joseon, you are really a good emperor." He tilted his head, and we looked at each other. The corners of his mouth raised and said, "What do you say?" I also seriously thought about how to praise him, and when I saw his playful eyes, I said, "You are not an inch away." His smile grew bigger. He turned his head and didn't look at me anymore, he looked into the distance, and then I heard him sigh for a long time. After a while he asked, "Shintangzhou, if you don't have to stay in the palace, where do you want to go?" I thought about it for a long time, and replied to him, "I want to see many places in Master's story. Do you want to see the icy and snowy north, the south where winter is very warm, the water town in Jiangnan to live in a house built on the water, and go back to the general's mansion to see the peach trees planted in Huangwen grow up?" He reached out and touched my head, and he said, "Shintangzhou, after seeing the good rivers and mountains of Dezhou, can you come back and tell me?" I said, "If I go to see it, I will definitely come back and tell you." After saying that, I am happy myself. I choked with a smile, and he stroked my back and said that I was really a talent who could choke on myself. When I got better, he asked me if I was so happy. I said, "Yes." He fell silent again. I said I was a little cold and wanted to go back, then he pulled me over, gathered my clothes, and then suddenly started pulling out the beaded hairpin on my head. I asked him what he was doing, and he told me not to move. When he pulled out all the pearl hairpins on his head, he took out a jade hairpin from his chest and inserted it on my head, and he looked at it for a long time after inserting it. "Is it so good looking? I want to reach out and take a look." He slapped my hand and said, "Don't take it off." I asked him if he looked good. His gaze moved to my face, and after a while he said, "It's good looking." I asked him, "Is this a birthday gift?" He said, "I guess so." Then he asked me if I liked it. I said I didn't see it, I don't know if I like it or not, and then Joseon laughed. He smiled and knocked me on the head, telling me not to be ignorant. On the way Joseon sent me back to the palace. I was called away by Duke Ning halfway, he was really busy. When I returned to Changchun Palace, the Queen Mother was actually sitting in the main hall drinking tea, and she seemed to be waiting for me. The Queen Mother beckoned me to sit down, then pushed a sandalwood box in front of me, saying it was a birthday gift for me. The Queen Mother asked me to open it, and I opened it obediently, and there was something like an imperial decree inside. I raised my eyes to look at the Queen Mother uncertainly, and she asked me to take it out and take a look. I obediently took it out and looked at it. It was really an imperial decree, but it was an imperial decree written by the late emperor, and the content in it was probably to let Shintangzhou marry Emperor Joseon in the year of his 15th birthday, and then become a virtuous queen. Thinking that I was Shintangzhou, I looked at the Queen Mother in confusion. The Queen Mother said, "Error, this imperial decree has not been read yet, and now it is given to you." I asked the Queen Mother in a dull manner, "Can I never let it be read?" The Queen Mother patted my hand lovingly and said, "Of course." She also said that she didn't let me listen to the court not because my surname was Shin, but because she wanted me to have a choice. She also said that if I was willing to stay in this palace, she could guarantee that there would only be one queen in the harem. There was a drop of water on the imperial decree, and there were 1, 2, 3, and many drops, and the Queen Mother reached out and stroked my face. Yes. It turned out that I cried, and I thought the roof was leaking. The Queen Mother got up and hugged me, patted me on the back, and praised me for being a good boy. The Queen Mother stared at me for a long time before leaving, and then asked me, "The hairpin on my head was given by the Emperor?" I reached out and touched the hairpin on my head and replied to her, "Yes." The Queen Mother said, "The hairpin is so ugly, me." I stretched out my hand and pulled it out, and then I finally saw the true face of the hairpin. The hairpin was not round, the carved pattern was strange, and the word "error" engraved on the hairpin was also crooked. I touched the engraved word "error," and I quibbled for it with a crying voice, "It's not ugly. This irregular carving is now fashionable." The Queen Mother looked at me gently, then she reached out and took the hairpin in my hand, looked at it for a while, and asked me to lower my head and insert the hairpin on my head again. She said, you look good when you wear it." After saying that, he touched my head and asked me to rest early. 27. The next day, I went to the Empress Dowager's palace to greet peace and study, and when I arrived, only Mama Zhang was there, and Mama Zhang said that the Empress Dowager went to the Hall of Fame early in the morning, and there were some affairs to be dealt with. This was the case on the second and third days, and when I went on the fourth day, I finally saw the Queen Mother. The Queen Mother said that the new year was coming soon, and asked me to stay in Changchun Palace in the future and not run around. I think, why can't you run around in the new year? I still obediently replied to the Queen Mother, The Queen Mother looked at me and smiled, and she said, I hope the new year will have a new beginning. Since then, I have been staying in Changchun Palace, and I look at the Hall of Fame from time to time, and the lights there seem to have never been extinguished. As the new year approached, the palace began to be filled with joy as in previous years. There are many new faces in the palace, walking around outside my Changchun Palace. That evening, I finished my meal and lay on the toffee to watch the story meeting. Zhou Shun came and brought 6 good-looking girls, all of whom were wearing palace maid's clothes. Zhou Shun said that this was the palace maid he had newly chosen for me, and I said yes. He just looked at me and didn't speak. I said, Zhou Shun, don't worry. I'll take care of myself. He reached out and touched my head and said yes. The new palace maids do nothing every day, just guard me, guarding 2 at the door, guarding 2 by the side, and the other 2 taking turns. In the new year of the Great Zhou, the emperor held a palace banquet and celebrated with civil and military officials. I was picked up by Mama Mu early to freshen up and dress up, and then went to greet the Queen Mother. The Queen Mother wanted me not to go to the palace banquet, but she said that she was even more worried if she didn't look at me. Then she told me not to be too far away from the palace maids at the banquet. The palanquin that came to pick me up for the palace banquet arrived. I walked to the door, and returned to take the dagger that Wanwan gave me on the hunting ground. The palace banquet is very boring, it is the same every year, eating and drinking, saying auspicious words and rewarding. Oh! There is also a beautiful sister dancing, which is my favorite show. This year there are a lot of beautiful sisters, and they dance very beautifully. I was fascinated by it, and I don't know which bastard shouted that there was an assassin. Most of the beautiful sisters on the field drew knives from their waists. Most of them went to cut Zhou Shun, and a small part came at me, and I don't like to watch beautiful sisters dance anymore. The people around me fought with them, and many people in black came to the door. Soon, there was a scuffle in the hall, and it was a mess, but fortunately, the palace maids and sisters sent by Zhou Shun were very strong in martial arts and protected me thoroughly. When I saw Zhou Shun, he was fine, he didn't do anything, and he looked at the battle situation on the field calmly. Some people are shouting to protect the emperor. I think, what's the use of just shouting? You will cry. Then someone shouted, quick decision, the Dog Emperor's Imperial Forest Army is coming. Then the people who besieged me became more and more ruthless, and the 2 palace maids who were guarding by my side also joined the battle. A hidden arrow from nowhere shot through my shoulder, and I cried out in pain. I feel so painful, my brain is buzzing. I heard Zhou Shun calling me. I didn't have the strength to reply to him, and after a while, Zhou Shun came over and approached me while fighting back. I told him not to run around, not to come over. Isn't his brain bad? Isn't it good to stay in the protective circle? I also want to say that you can't come, I might be safer. He was already leaning over, he looked over my shoulder and said, Shen Tangzhou, it's okay, I'll take you to the imperial doctor right away. I felt the pain passed, my head cleared up, and then we heard the Queen Mother exclaim again. Zhou Shun and I looked in the direction of the Queen Mother at the same time. As I turned my head, the knife on the ground reflected light into my eyes. I turned around and saw a black shadow slashing at Zhou Shun with a knife. I took a step to the right, and the knife stabbed into my body. The person who stabbed me was not stunned at all, he even quickly drew his knife to prepare for another stab, but fortunately he was finally knocked away by Zhou Shun's palm. I felt something hot, and wet my clothes. Zhou Shun covered my chest, asked me to hold on, and took me to see a doctor immediately. The surroundings were still fighting. Joseon protected me, and I was almost plotted several times. I'm really anxious. I want him to leave me alone. But as soon as I opened my mouth, blood gushed out, and then Joseon asked me to shut up. Listening to Joseon calling my name over and over again, I also want him to shut up and tell him not to run around. I have to listen. I want to scold him. But when I looked up, I found that he was crying. I wanted to reach out and pat him on the head and tell him that I didn't hurt at all, but I couldn't lift my hand. The Imperial Forest Army finally came, and the scene was controlled all of a sudden, and I wondered if I was going to die because I saw my father. My father hurriedly ran towards me, and he took me into his arms, and I knew that my father was really here. My father also cried. He picked me up, and while crying, he said, "Error, hold on, Dad is here to take you home." My dad is here, it's great. I was so tired that when I saw my father, I closed my eyes with confidence. 28. I woke up many times in a daze, and every time I could see Joseon and the Queen Mother. I always sigh, it's great that the Queen Mother is okay. Every time I saw him excitedly saying something, but I just couldn't hear clearly, and then I tried my best to think about what he was saying in my sleep. I sometimes seemed to hear someone calling Joseon to deal with the government, and Joseon shouting people to get out. Then I suspected that he didn't want to read the memorial, and used me as an excuse. When I woke up for the fourth time, I looked at Joseon, who was holding my hand, and expressed my doubts these days. I thought Joseon would scold me for being stupid again. I thought about it. If he dared to scold me now, I would immediately complain to the Queen Mother, and he would definitely be taught a hard lesson by the Queen Mother. But this time he didn't scold me for being stupid. He said, "Shin Tangzhou, I just use you as an excuse not to deal with the government. You have to dare to do this again. Wait for the civil and military officials to drown you with spitting stars." I was so angry that I didn't know what to say. Later, I stopped sleeping for 3 or 4 days without waking up, and Joseon went to the court. I'm so angry. Reputation is harmed. The Queen Mother also came to accompany me every day, and when the Queen Mother came to see me that day, she also brought my father with her. Only then did I dare to believe that my father was really hugging me before I fainted, and I always thought I was dreaming. My father's eyes were red, and he asked me if it still hurt, and I told my father with tears in his eyes, I was in pain. My father hugged me distressfully, touched my head, and said that it wouldn't hurt if I hugged him, and I cried even harder. My father said that there was a military doctor in the house who was very experienced in treating knife wounds, and he wanted to take me back. The Queen Mother said that the imperial doctor in the palace was the best and hoped that I would stay and recuperate. The Queen Mother asked me, "Error, what do you think?" I was silent for a long time and said, "I want to go home with my father." After I finished speaking, there was the sound of a bowl breaking at the door, and I turned my head to look, and the bright yellow corner of my clothes disappeared at the door. The Queen Mother said, "Okay." Joseon didn't come to stare at me to drink the soup today, and the soup came a long time later. After that, when my father came to pick me up and take me home, I didn't see Joseon again. On the third day, when I was able to get out of bed and move freely, my father came excitedly in armor, and my father said, Father will pick you up and take you home." I thought with my not-so-smart head, something must have changed in the previous dynasty. When our carriage was about to leave, Joseon came, and he asked me, "Shin Tangzhou, why do you want to block my sword?" My mother said that I am a fool and have a foolish blessing, and the Queen Mother said that I am a kind and good boy. I think I am stupid and kind. But I am a little embarrassed to say this. I said, "Because you are the emperor." His bright eyes seemed to be less bright all of a sudden, and he said, "Shin Tangzhou, will you forget what you promised?" I thought for a while and told him, "Don't forget what is important." I got into the carriage and waved goodbye to him, and he just looked at me. The carriage went farther and farther, and I looked at Joseon standing there, very much like the scene when I first saw him. I lowered the curtain, my chest aching faintly. I think the wound was probably upside down. 29. My days of recuperating in the general's mansion were comfortable and peace of mind. The peach tree planted by Wanwan and I grew very tall, and I looked at the peach tree in amazement. My father asked me what I was looking at, and I said that this tree was planted by me and Wanwan when I was 4 years old. He said, "The tree is growing well, and you are growing well." I asked my dad with a smile, "Are I growing up well?" My father hummed seriously. My father also told me that my mother also planted a tree in the house on the other side of the border, which was a chestnut tree, and it grew very tall. On the 6th day when I returned to the general's mansion, my mother came back. After drinking the medicine, I lay on the couch by the window to watch my story meeting, and I heard someone calling me, a soft voice. I turned my head to look at the door. It was my mother. She cried with tears on her face. I wasn't sure, so I called out softly. She came over and reached out to hug me. I threw myself into her arms, and she gently patted me on the back. After my mother recovered, she asked me where my injury was and how it was. I said that I was almost healed, and she insisted on watching it, and after showing it to her, she cried even harder. Later, my father came and coaxed her well. My mother wanted to stay by my side at all times, feed me medicine, read books with me, walk with me in the garden, and buy me chestnut cakes. But if I drink the medicine obediently, she will frown and be sad. I stayed in the room bored and read the book my father sent to relieve boredom, and my mother was also sad. I was swinging quietly under the trees in the garden, and she was also sad. I only ate one piece of chestnut crisp and she cried. I was very sad to see her crying. I asked my mother, did I grow up like this, did she not like me? My mother was stunned for a while and said no, no. I said there is no need to be sad. She touched my head and said, you have really grown up. As she spoke, she cried again, but she finally looked less sad. When I was about to recover, I told my father to ask him to take me to the border. My father thought for a long time and said yes. A few days before we were about to leave for the border, Zhao Yu came. I asked her how she knew I had returned to the general's mansion, and she said she had her own way. Although the imperial decree to make Shintangzhou the queen has not been officially read, since the late emperor gave the name, everyone actually knew about this matter, so as Shintangzhou, I can't leave the palace yet. But everyone can see my injury, who can say whether I can be saved or not. By the time I left the capital, Shintang and Zhou had not yet died, but were unconscious in the palace. Zhao Yu said, Shintangzhou, I heard that you don't plan to be a queen. I looked at Zhao Yu in front of me and said probably. Zhao Yu handed me her wedding invitation, and she asked me if I would go. I said I would prepare a big gift. She smiled and said that she was not allowed to give a pearl hairpin, and after saying that, she put a very delicate bead hairpin on the table in front of me. I looked at her in confusion. She just told me that the pearl hairpin was not given by the emperor, but by what she asked for from the emperor, and after saying that, she got up and prepared to leave. I stopped her and said, Zhao Yu, thank you for accompanying me. She waved her hand to make me less pretentious and left. Zhao Yu is the most magnanimous girl I have ever seen. She is a special girl in my heart. She can be lively, but also dignified and beautiful. I have envied her many times. 30. By the time I got to the border, I was already pale from exhaustion. Wanwan was waiting for us at the gate of the small courtyard, and I hung on her after getting off the carriage. I heard someone say, General Shen, you wrote to say that you want to bring error, and I am still worried that we will not be able to distinguish between Wanwan and heir. Hey! One is white, the other is black, it's easy to distinguish it. Then the man next to Wanwan said, General Qian, the ink in his stomach is less open, he is obviously a heroic and sassy person, a gentle and pleasant person. I raised my heavy eyelids and glanced at the man who said that I was gentle and lovely, an acquaintance, the man next to Wanwan in the hunting ground. Later, I slept in my mother's courtyard for several days before I recovered. Today Wanwan came back early. She said she wanted to take me to the night market, which is unique to this place, open once every half-month, and it is still very lively in the second half of the night. Sure enough, it was very lively and crowded, so I squeezed in excitedly and held my hand firmly. After visiting a few places, in front of a very lively jewelry stall, Wanwan and I were washed away. I wanted to wait for one to come to me in place, but the crowd was crowded, and I didn't know where I was squeezed in the end. Finally, I stood in front of a jade stall, because there were not many people here, and I believed that one should be able to find it in a while. I stood for about a quarter of an hour before I could find it, and the owner of the jade stall shouted at me to look at her things. I thought I was idle, so I looked at it casually, and finally the boss took a fancy to the hosta on my head. She said, "How about selling me that ugly hairpin on your head?" "My hairpin is not ugly." "I refuse, I don't sell." She also said that I would pay a handicraft fee to carve it for me, but I still refused. In the end, she actually got started directly. She pulled me. I couldn't push her away, so we pushed and shoved it. I heard someone calling me, and then the boss was pushed away with a palm, and the person hugged me. It was Wan. She hugged me and said, "Error, I thought I lost you again." I comforted Wan, and I said that I am now grown up, and will not lose it again. She was comforted and cried by me. The first time I heard Wan call me when I grew up, there was nothing novel, and my own voice was a bit similar. In the end, we went home without buying anything. When I saw Wan again, she still didn't speak. I was confused, so I ran to ask my mother. My mother pondered for a while and told me that Wan fell ill about half a month after I entered the palace, and it took more than a month of intermittent fever to heal, and then I couldn't speak. I said no. She called me last time I went to the market. My mother fell into deep thought again, and after a while she said, "Then let her be. Wan is just too smart, she knows everything and doesn't say anything." I poked my mother's hand and comforted her. The days in the border town passed very quickly, and this year's chestnut harvest was bumper. There are many martial arts people in the family, but I just want to go up the tree to knock on the fruit. I really can't climb the tree. My father found me a ladder and asked me to step on the ladder to climb the tree. I climbed onto the branch and lowered my head to show off to my parents and Wan when I saw them looking at me intently. My eyes were swollen, and I seemed to suddenly understand why Zhao Yu could climb the tree again and again without remembering to hit him. My mother used these chestnuts to make us a lot of chestnut crisps, and they were full after eating one each. I ate 6 of them abruptly with my mother's expectant eyes, and I think my mother doesn't seem to be suitable for this. I was afraid that my mother would have to make it for me the next day, so I proposed to move the extra chestnuts to the market next to me to sell. I think I have a talent for setting up a stall, and after the chestnuts were sold out, I set up a stall to write couplets, and the books of these years cannot be copied in vain. After a month's distribution, a pair of couplets will be sold, and the booth fee will be paid. I didn't want to pay, so I pulled Wan and conspired for her to intimidate the person who charged, and then my mother suddenly appeared and said that if she dared to go, she would break my leg and Wan's leg. After my mother finished speaking, the 3 of us laughed. In order to comfort me who was losing money, Wan decided to take me to the market in another town, and while shopping, another jade seller took a fancy to my jade hairpin. He said that he was from Yun County, which was rich in jade in the Great Zhou dynasty, and his stall was full of top-notch jade, but if the jade on my head was sold to him, he could choose any 2 to give to me at the stall. I refused and asked him curiously, "Why did you go to the north of the Great Zhou to sell jade?" He said that the world is good now, so he wants to break through. After a while he sighed again. It is also thanks to our current emperor's diligence and love for the people. I took it casually. Well, he is quite diligent. The boss looked at me inexplicably, and I chose a few to ask Wan to pay quickly and leave. It seems that after returning home from the market, I can often hear news from Zhou Sun. I helped my father get the rice paper, and the scholarly young people in the rice paper shop were discussing some political decisions of Zhou Sun. I went to the breakfast stall I frequented to eat tofu brains, and I could hear the diners talking about Zhou Sun. So I decided to stay at home for 2 days before going out. I asked my mother, "What does it mean to think about being alone frequently?" My mother was stunned by my question. She asked me what's wrong. I said nothing. There is a watchtower behind the courtyard that allows you to see the entire town. I sat on the tower all afternoon, and just as I was about to go back, my father came. My father said, Error, are the lights of these thousands of houses beautiful? I said it looked good. My father told me that the lights of these thousands of homes also had my protection, and I looked at my father puzzled. My father touched my head and said, Error, my father's daughter has worked hard for you. I was suddenly very sad. Obviously I didn't work hard at all, obviously everyone was hard. My mother has all kinds of guilt because she didn't grow up with me. Wanwan blamed herself harshly because I entered the palace. The queen mother and Jo Sun were under all kinds of pressure, and wanted me to have a choice. I am loved by everyone, and I obviously don't work hard at all. My dad reached out and stroked my face. Why did I cry again? 31. It was cold, and it seemed that there was no business, so I closed my stall early and prepared to walk home. I seemed to see Jo Sun around the corner, and I ran over and found that it was really Jo Sun. I smirked and looked at him. He said, Shintang Zhou, are you so happy? I said, yes. He said, you closed the stall so early. I said, because no one here appreciates my masterpieces at all, I'm going to change places. He said, where to go? I said, the capital.